a little bit about me. So you could read this if you want, but I'll net it out for you. And that is that I love, love, love what I do. I am not only in marketing, I am a marketer, and I'm happy to say that. I work for SAP, and we are a B2B software company, global. If we're not the largest, we're definitely in the battle to be the largest. And we do both on-prem and in the cloud. And we operate in just about every continent and just about every industry. So let me tell you just a little bit about um, the kinds of things that our customers do, because that's what SAP is about. So I grabbed a couple of statistics for you. Our customers make 82%. Let's try that one again, shall we? Our customers make 82% of the world's medical devices, 85% of the world's pet food, 64% of the world's ice cream, 82% of the world's coffee and tea, 62% of the world's movies, 79% of the world's chocolate, 77% of the world's beer, 82% of the world's motorcycles, 69% of the world's toys and games. Basically, if you wear it, eat it, drink it, interact with it online, etc., our customers have made it. We've touched it. And so that's sort of an amazing, amazing responsibility for us. And I get to work in marketing for them. So, wanted to just do a quick level set before I jump into why I love audio so much. We live in this always on world, right? Anyone who's got an iPhone or some sort of a tablet or computer can touch us at any moment. And as a result, the buyer's journey is no longer linear. It's hyperlinked. And because these people are hopping in at unpredictable points, they are constantly looking for fresh content, and that is where we come in. So I found this from one of my favorite cartoonists. If you all are not familiar with the Marketoonist, Google him. He's amazing, and I bought the right to use this comic that he did in this presentation. So thank you very much. And I am really, really hyper about basically about intellectual property rights. So I would never steal somebody else's content knowingly. So I hope that gave you a little chuckle to start with. But here's where the devil meets the details, right? That I probably just mixed a metaphor there. Some people really like to take their content in a visual format. My SVP, many of you probably know people like this. She is wicked smart. But if I want her to get something in a hurry, I will do a PowerPoint for her because she is a visual learner. Not everybody learns that way. So we create content that appeals to various ways of consuming information. I think the shorthand is various types of learners. And the folks who like to learn by listening, they're really coming into their own right now. I'm going to try this. Nope. Sorry, as I'm navigating here. I want to give you a couple of stats to look at while I tell you this. But one would think that as more people stay home, fewer of them would be turning to audio. But it's actually just the opposite is happening. If you think about smart speakers, if you think about having your car enabled, if you think about those precious moments that you can get outside of the house, audio is actually growing exponentially. And it's not just podcasts. I'm going to show you all kinds of different audio techniques that I think will help you with your content strategy and your content mapping, building on the presentation that came just before mine. Let me start with podcasting. There are several different ways to do podcasts, and there are several different types of podcasting. But the first thing is let's set the groundwork, let's kind of pave the runway here. Evo Terra, he wrote Podcasting for Dummies, and he's been quoted before. But I love this. If you've written and published anything beyond an email or a tweet, you know that the first draft sucks. And any of you who are parents and you've had to help your children with this, you know that you always have to throw out the first paragraph of whatever they write. It's that white page syndrome. But he goes on to say that the same is true for your first attempt at recording a podcast episode for your business. And here's the tip: don't publish content that sucks. Pretty solid advice. So before you even dive in, think about what you're trying to accomplish. You, I know that in-person events are not a thing right now, and a lot of people are thinking, "What can we do besides a webinar?" And a podcast is one of those things that you could do, but there are different types of podcasts. So you could do an interview, and I think we all are aware of these types. Kenneth, our host, does a wonderful one. The Sharks. Uh, sorry, I just screwed up his name. So, um, if you ever have listened to his lineup of guests, it's not just what they're saying, but it's how he interviews. And I'm not just saying that because he's a friend. He became a friend because I started listening to his podcast and I met him at several events. But when you start to do an interview style podcast, you have to have a goal in mind. What are you trying to achieve? It's not just throwing disparate information out there and hoping something sticks. You also can do a monologue. One of my favorite is by Pam Didner, and she does a 7-minute marketing podcast. And I love tuning into them. They don't take long, they're bite sized, and she always finds something interesting to say about marketing. And it's where you just have a subject matter expert who does a monologue, and it's just that person, all by himself or herself. The other thing that you could do is an audio drama. I'll come back to audio drama a little bit later, but regardless of which one you choose to do, always good to rehearse because you just never know how it's going to come out. And it's not that something will always go bump in the night, but you might have that aha moment that you wish you'd have known about previously. And then, of course, there's all the things that you should do afterwards. Relentless promotion every single way that you can. And I'll give you a lot of great examples as we get into this piece. So let's just sort of put this over in the parking lot right now. I will come back to this. One of the things, though, that I do like to highlight is doing a newsletter. If you don't do a newsletter, you could do ongoing social media. You can do emails, but if you choose to do a newsletter, this is one of my favorite from Whitney Johnson. Imagine opening up an email, and the very first thing you read is, "A few days ago, our daughter announced there was something big she wanted to undertake." Doesn't that just sound like a friend talking to you? It's a way of humanizing your communications, and it doesn't just sound sort of preachy. So download these slides, take a look at some of these examples, maybe check out Whitney Johnson's podcast. Definitely try to find her newsletter. You can Google it very easily, and you'll just find some amazing, amazing examples. Okay, let me go to the, oops, my mouse seems to want to just spin the slide. So I'm going to try to get that under control. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I told you that if you don't, that you should do a newsletter. I also think that you should post show notes. Here's why. Over 10% of the population is either hearing impaired or deaf. And Evo Terra himself, so the man who wrote Podcasting for Dummies, is hearing impaired. He says this himself. I'm not outing him about anything at all. And I'm sorry, I said 10%, I meant 15%. Here's the thing. Search engines cannot crawl audio. So you need to put something up for those search engines to grab a hold of so that you get the organic search results that you're looking for. So you can just transcribe your podcast, and at minimum, it's better than nothing. But if you can, try to transcribe it and then sort of go back in and humanize it. Put in some color commentary, put in some subheads, put in some bullet points, maybe do some call out quotes, put in a little bit of atmosphere to the piece. Try to create recreate the experience on paper that you just had created for audio. I know that this is all about audio, but if you can't get people to find it, then you're going to be very, very disappointed no matter how great your piece is. The other thing that I would also tell you is that if you do a transcription, that is gold for a writer. So there are many, many different ways that you can find writers who can write blogs that will help you promote your podcast. And if you hand them a transcription, then they are able to pull out those quotes and to build on that. And it's so much faster and it's so much more effective. And you'll find that you use that transcript for many, many other things. Let me try my down arrow, see if that works for me. Nope, it does not. Sorry about that. Let me give you a couple of podcasting tips and tricks that we've just sort of run through. Um, if you're doing an interview, you want to ask at least three good questions. And if you do it that way, you might be able to break your blog into three blogs and give yourself sort of ongoing promotional ammunition, if you will. When you publish your podcasts, make sure that you're publishing, of course, on all of the key players. Don't just pick one or two. It's a little bit more difficult, but once you get it down, I think that you'll be pleased with the results. Invest in a good podcast mic. That kind of goes without saying. If you are recording either a monologue or an interview style podcast, you might want to consider recording it using a video platform. The reason that I say that is twofold. One, if you can see the other person, it makes for a better audio quality. You've been on the conference calls where people talk over each other, or maybe nobody's talking and it's like, no, you go ahead. I'm sorry. No, you go ahead. Well, if you can see the body language, you can see that someone wants to break in and it's a much smoother transition. And if you do that, and you have a series, at some point you can go in and grab bits of video and create sort of a montage and post that out on Vimeo or YouTube or on your website. And you've just created an additional promotional piece. You can use it in social media. You can embed it in a blog. If you're writing your blog, think about embedding a sound clip so that people can actually hear the passion in other people's voices. There's a couple more bullet points on here. I encourage you to download the slides, but I am conscious of the time since Kenneth ran over on the last one. Just kidding. So let me get to the next topic, audio white papers. So we know that audio white papers actually perform for us. I pulled up some research on that, but let's just go on that premise for right now. But this is a typical sentence, and I'm going to try to read this to you. And I've done it a couple of times, so I'm going to be probably a little bit more smooth than someone who reads it for the first time. I won't go the whole way through because it is quite lengthy. Overcoming this challenge and driving sustained value out of a digital transformation effort requires the ability to select, implement, and leverage technologies that work together. An innovation culture that includes the ability to adapt. You see what I mean? It's difficult to read some of the sentences that are in white papers, mainly because you have to know how it's going to end to get the tone set correctly in your head when you start the sentence. If you were to hire a voiceover artist, he could or she could spend time with the piece, actually understand it, and read it smoothly. My colleague and I did a series of audio papers. I want to say now it's 3 years ago. We had done some research that Americans are listening to audiobooks, that executives and responders like white papers, but they're difficult to read, et cetera, et cetera. Oops, somehow or the other, I just jumped all the way to the beginning and I need to back up to where I was. So while we were doing all of this research, it clicked for us that we could take this white paper and we could hire a voiceover artist and turn it essentially into an audiobook. So we started with a single white paper that our CEO wrote. We versioned it for 15 different industries. We wanted to make sure that we called out the pieces that were applicable to those industries. Then we had them recorded. So our results were that we delivered 144% of plan. Of the people who were listening to it, as you can see, 55% were vice president and above, and 21% were in the C-suites. We don't get that for people who are reading the white papers. And we gave them access to the PDF as well as the audio version. Now, again, remember that whenever you post these, you must put out something that is written because search engines cannot crawl audio material. So this is a kind of what it looked like. We set it out on YouTube. We had to create a horizontal cover for our paper. As you could see, we also allowed them to download. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving, but we had allowed them to download the PDF version as well. And YouTube makes it super simple to do this. First of all, there's no cost to post them. You want to make sure that the link is hidden if you're going to gate it. And then you put up a landing page and then distribute the link that way. Yes, people will distribute the link. And so you'll get more hits than people who have actually registered. And I think that's a good thing because you get a lot of awareness that way. But by setting up your chapters this way, they're indexed. So people are able to skip through from chapter to chapter to chapter within your white paper. If you want an example, go out to YouTube and Google one of the Harry Potter books. I think they're all out there, and you can see how you can skip through something of that length. And then there's just a couple of extra tips here, but I'm keeping an eye on the time so that I can get us through the whole thing, the whole presentation. Audiograms. These are pretty simple. Let me give you the concept. I know some of you are probably reading, and that's fine, but let me give you the concept in a quick flyby. You make a quick recording, say 30 seconds to 40 seconds. You could even stretch it to a minute and a half max. I would encourage you to try not to go over a minute. I know sometimes it's hard, but you make the recording and you have a static image. I'm going to go to the next slide so you can so I can illustrate. You have a static image, and what I like to do, and there are apps and sites out there that will let you will help you to create these. I like to put the little heartbeat voice pattern over my static image so people know that something's going on. It's got a little play button on it, so people click it expecting it to be a video. It's not. I also like to put not verbatim, but I do put a lot of the text on screen because we know that there are a lot of people who watch videos on mute. So I'm all about audio, but I'm playing to the other people as well. There will be a call to action here. It's very attention grabbing. It's social media friendly. It's not that common, so people do tend to pay attention to them. They're quick and easy to make. They're not that expensive, so they're very budget friendly. So I have a couple of tips and tricks. Like I said, the first thing is to put the play button icon on top so that people know that there's something going on there. I do like to add the text and the sound waves. Something that a lot of people forget is to add a call to action. Please don't forget that. Even though the audiogram is attention grabbing and it's pretty cool, you still want to be able to track what happens and follow your attribution models. So these are one of my favorite ways to promote anything that I do is in an audio format because I've already got the audio created, right? So they're pretty easy to do. I'm going to scoot ahead, but I'll try to leave time for comments if anyone has them. I told you I would tell you a little bit about audio dramas, and I'm going to try to run through this. But I first encountered them with one of our customers, GE. They had developed a new technique of healing the human body with sound waves. So they wanted to get the word out. And what they did, these audio dramas, how to explain them? It's kind of like the old 1940s. No, I don't recall them personally, but those radio mystery dramas. So they created an entire story, and it was a science fiction story about how sound waves could heal the human body. And you really didn't know that it was a marketing technique until the end of the series. And it was theater of the mind. It was optimized storytelling. And these can be done, but they're not as quick and easy. And they're definitely a little bit more pricey. So you want to really make sure that they fit within your strategy before you try to attempt them. We did them at SAP. We did one a couple of years ago. It's called Searching for Salai. We chose to create a video trailer and we created episode teasers. So the episode teasers were like the audiograms, text on screen, the little voice print, an excerpt from the episode, and we were good to go. Super simple to create. The trailer, a little bit more involved, but we tend to use a lot of our co-ops to work on these types of projects. So there's a tip for you that I probably did not put in my slides. But the one that we created was called Searching for Salai, and it was a tremendous amount of fun. And the whole reason I did the video part of the audio was to create the playlist out on YouTube so that we had additional promotional measures. We won quite a number of awards for the campaign. It was an integrated campaign. It was not just a podcast. And we also won some podcasting awards, which we were very proud of. And I am so thrilled to tell you that today is launch day. We just did our second one. So if you are interested at all, this one is a comedy and it's called The Retrofuturist Chronicles. And it's just out today. We're super excited. And Evo Terra has helped us with it from beginning to end. But here's some tips and tricks to you, or tips and tricks for you. We're coming up on just 5 minutes, and I have one more topic to cover for us. Let the story illustrate the benefits of your product or service, but don't be too salesy with this. This is storytelling, and at the basis of storytelling is something called pity, fear, and catharsis. So I happen to be married to a Shakespearean scholar and a master storyteller, so I hear this all the time. In order for you to care about a character, you have to first pity them. And then you have to fear that maybe they won't make it, whatever their journey is. Will the guy get the girl? Will he not? And then you will be able to be cathartic and you will feel happy that the hero has achieved his goal. So if we think back to GE's podcast that they did, we felt very sorry. We had the pity thing going at the beginning. We were fearful that potentially no one would figure out, what this time traveler had, the message that they had left behind. And then we were, overjoyed at the end, right? So that's what you want to do. And it doesn't matter so much that you haven't specifically talked about your service or product. Now, I'm not pushing my podcast, but I do want to say we think we cracked the nut on how to actually talk about our services, our products and services without destroying the story. So we're pretty excited about it. But here, and that's the Retrofuturist Chronicles. But here are some really great examples that you can go and, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find them. If you download the link, the slides, all of these are linked. And sorry, this is bouncing around on me one more time. I wanted to give you some resources, and then I'll give you sort of one extra um, uh, uh, sort of tip about audio. But here are some of the uh, um, sources that I use. I am not compensated by any of these people. There are others that you can find out there. I encourage you to do your research and find what works for you, but this is by way of getting you started. If you just need to understand how podcasting is working, Evo Terra does a lot of consulting work. That's how I found him. I'm sure there are others, and please do your due diligence. Don't do it just because I said this. I stumbled across a lot of these myself when I was in learning phase. So I think that we have a number of questions that I am going to try to pull up. But the last thing that I wanted to tell you about audio is that when you're doing audio, it should be integrated. You shouldn't do audio for audio's sake. You shouldn't do it for vanity. And I know we all hate it when people say what not to do. But if you're ever in a position where someone just wants to create um, a podcast, doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong, but look at how it fits into the rest of your strategy and make everything integrate, make it dovetail back in on each other, and you'll be so much more successful. There are so many podcasts out there. And if your expectation is, hey, I want 10,000 listens, you're going to have to work for that a lot. So one of the ways that you could do that is that you could do paid media to drive people to your podcast, but do your research and find the paid media that will drive the people who fit your criteria. Don't disenfranchise the people who find it. So if they happen to like your audio drama, that's fantastic. But if they're not your buying target audience, then it's not going to be helpful for you. There's so much more I can talk about here. I would actually love to hear back from all of you as well. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, just mention the show so I know who you are, and I'll answer questions then. Right now, I am going to pull up a couple of questions right quick because we've only got a minute left. And I know that I'm standing between you, many of you on the East Coast and lunch. The question that I have right now is how do you recommend using audio content for B2C commodity products, food delivery service, rideshare service versus differentiated products? Um, you know, I'm going to have to click show more on this question, a specialized cybersecurity product. Um, that's a great question. And I think the way that I would answer this one is again to determine what your strategy is. I know that's an easy answer. The harder part of the answer is if what you're trying to do is grow your business uh, with a podcast, then consider bringing your happy customers on as guests and doing an interview style. If instead what you want to do is grow your business is to grow your thought leadership, then I would consider doing something more along the lines of a monologue where you impart wisdom. And it doesn't hurt to throw some humor into your podcast. It doesn't have to be super serious, but that's how I respond. I like things that are just a little bit irreverent, a little bit humor, something that doesn't bring me down, something that's more uplifting. So it wouldn't hurt to dust off those buyer personas that the last speaker had been talking about to see what their concerns and interests are and to create your strategy that way. If you wanted to do an audio drama, I would really have to think about that a little bit more because I'm not entirely sure how to do an audio drama at the drop of a hat. It takes a lot more thought to do that. Um, I'm going to let it go here now because I just saw the clock click over and I'll invite Kenneth to come back on. I'll try to answer some other questions. If you have more, you can uh, absolutely send them to me in LinkedIn.